To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. Okay, so I'm back at the tiny house build again today, and really I'm just kind of waiting on materials. I don't have a lot going on today. I do have a project that I'm going to work on here in a minute. So I'm waiting on the shower. I think all this stuff is supposed to be here today and tomorrow. And then when we get the shower put in, or at least get the base down on the floor, I mean, it's just one of those plastic showers. Once we get that down, then we can start working on the floor. Now, as you may recall, our neighbor gave us the flooring material. And he gave us 2 brand new boxes and then a partial with all the cut pieces that he had to cut. He was redoing his kitchen, and he gave us this huge stack, which should be more than enough to do our floor, considering we don't have to worry about the shower and we don't have to worry about the concrete brick area also. We have the floor covering. You got to put this covering down first. We already got that. So once we have the shower identified, where we want it, where the drain's going to be, I mean, I could do it with measurements now, but I want to get the shower down first just to be sure that it's all going to work out. I'm also waiting for 1-inch spacers. We're going to put this metal roofing material behind the wood stove. I mean, it doesn't need it. It is absolutely nearly cool to the touch. It's barely warmer than my hand, but we're going to put that metal behind it just to be extra safe. We're well within code where we don't even need a backing. You got to have these 1-inch spacers. They're supposed to use 1-inch spacers so airflow can get behind the metal or whatever material you're using to keep the inside cool. Those spacers come with screws, but I think I'm going to end up having to use the screws that I use for the metal trim outside, for the metal roofing material trim. These are nice and long because the screws they're giving me is assuming that it's going into drywall, and this is wood, so I'm going to have to use wood screws. Instead of those plastic inserts, you know, you pop a hole in the drywall and you put those plastic inserts in there. Then the other thing that's supposed to be here today or tomorrow is the electric wire that I'm going to use to run down to the camper, because the camper is where our power station is, the batteries, the solar panels, the inverter. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this 12-2 with ground outdoor wire, and I'm just going to plug it right into the inverter, run it up here. I'll bury it eventually. We're going to run it underneath the house, and then we'll just run wire up through the floor once the floor is installed into a plug-in, and we're going to have 3 plug-ins. Our lighting is just going to be battery operated lighting that we can recharge off the solar panels. Lanterns or something. We haven't figured it out. We thought about doing LED, but then I would have to run another wire up here for DC electric. And I don't want to run DC up here. I just want to have regular AC electric, and all the DC stuff can stay down there. Okay, so then today's project is not that big of a deal. As you know, we have this IBC tank that we use to hold our water. So every few weeks I pump water from the well into the IBC tank. I recognize a lot of people think I should just use the well and pump it right into the house like normal everyday operation. The problem is like today, if I wanted to take a shower today, I wouldn't be able to because the solar panels wouldn't be able to recharge the batteries fast enough to run the well pump. So what I do is I run the well pump with the generator, and one day I will run them off the solar panels. I just don't have a big enough inverter. I will one day get a bigger inverter. I've been procrastinating on that. It costs, you know, a few $100s, whereas I just want to build the tiny house right now. So that's the only reason I haven't bought the bigger inverter. But right now I just run it off the generator. Well, on sunny days, when I have the inverter, I'll be able to run the well, fill the tank, and then I can just run the tank off DC electric. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a battery up there. Long story. And as I go along, I'll show you what I'm doing. But today, what I want to do is just build a wooden box that will fit around the IBC tank, so I can insulate the box and it doesn't freeze. So it's not a big project. I got all the materials I need except paint. This is a 4-foot tank. It's a 4-foot high, 4-foot long, 4-foot wide. And so I'm just going to build it, I think 5.5 feet wide, the box, so I can get insulation down both sides. and then 4.5 feet tall, because I'm not going to do anything with the bottom. The bottom's going to sit right on the ground. So that'll give me a 1/2 foot on top, and it'll have a lid that I can open up so I can fill the tank. So I went ahead and bought 1x3s instead of 1x4s, because these were several dollars cheaper per board. And I figured, well, it's not going to be holding anything. It's just I'm making a box. So I went ahead and bought these. I think they're going to work great. Then I have the plywood. I bought the cheapest, thinnest plywood also, but I wanted something I could paint. One of the struggles I'm going to have is there's ice on everything. We had this ice storm and it still hasn't melted, so the boards got ice on them. So trying to mark things and get things squared is difficult because you got to beat off all the ice. And again, I'm just going to use Carolyn's little battery operated Black & Decker circular saw. It's really small, it's not very powerful, but man, it does a fantastic job for off-grid stuff. Easy to charge. I really like it. You just got to go slow. You can't force it or it just dies, you know, it stops. Okay, so I'm going to attach the plywood to the box, to the frame I made. Normally I would just use roofing nails or something real simple, but I got a ton of these metal roofing material screws that I bought. There was a shipping mix-up. I ended up having to buy an extra box. I only used half a box, so I got a box and a half of these that I'm never going to use up. So I figured this is going to be painted the same color as the house, so I just will use some of these. All right, so it's a start. I got 3 sides on and the frame done. I'm not going to put the front on just yet or the top because I want to be able to get inside. What I'm going to do, I know I've said this before, but now maybe you can get a better picture, is I'm going to lay it right here up against the house. And this wall of the box is going to go up against the house, so that means the front is the hole, which will be up here towards here. And so then when I bring the IBC tank up, I can slide the tank right in. That front end is going to be a door that I can get in and I can work on it if I need to. You know, the pump or the electric or, you know, whatever. I mean, the pumps don't last forever, those little RV pumps. I've talked about this IBC tank in previous videos. Go check them out if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to cut a hole, a 4-inch hole in the side of the house. Probably right around here. That hole is going to be ventilation. I'm going to run a piece of flexible tubing, 4-inch tubing, into that hole and then into the box. So I'll have to cut a hole in the box also. That way, in the wintertime, I can turn on a little fan, a little computer fan, and I can blow heat from the house into the box and keep the water thawed out. Now, also, I'm going to run the plumbing through that hole and the electrical for the RV pump. All of it go through that little hole. And then we can close it up in the summertime so we don't have to worry about keeping it cool or anything. Now, I am going to paint it. I'm going to paint it the same color as the house. I'm going to paint it tan. But I can't paint it today. I'll have to go to the hardware store and see if they can color match the house. I can't paint it today because the trees are crying. We had freezing rain 2 days ago, and it's been thawing out ever since, and it's just been raining terribly. I mean, look at this, everything's wet. Then I can close it up. I still got to buy another piece of wood. I miscounted somehow. I didn't get enough. I got one left, but I need another full sheet for the top. So this will swing down. That way I can walk into it. I won't even attach the top. I'll just be able to pick it up, and that way I can fill it. I can just take the plywood off, fill the tank with water, and it's not that heavy, but it's heavy enough to break your toe. It was so muddy today that I decided not to wear my steel-toed boots. I just didn't want to mess them up and drag all that mud into the camper. My other ones, I throw up on top of the camper because they're muddy and they're just nasty, and I don't want to drag it all into the camper, so I throw them on top of the camper. Well, it was muddy today, and I thought, you know, I'll just wear those old boots, and they're not steel-toe. So my good boots are, these aren't. And so I lifted the box up earlier, and I dropped it. It just slipped out of my hand, landed on my toe. Now this toe I broke back in the spring. I tell you though, it sure does feel good that we're getting so close to being finished. So I hope I can encourage you to find the finish line on your dream. Thanks for watching.